All right, welcome back, everyone. Our next speaker is Irina Ketkin. Irina is an L&D consultant and co-founder of the L&D Academy, where she helps aspiring and early career L&D professionals build practical, real-world skills. As a consultant, she also partners with multinational organizations to design learning consultant solutions that go beyond training for the sake of training and focus on real business impact. Thank you for being with us, Irina.
Well, first of all, hello everyone. Thank you so much for having me. And Sarah, thank you for the wonderful introduction. Uh, wow, what an amazing group of speakers, right? These are some tough acts to follow, but I'll do my best. Now, I have spent the last 15 years designing development programs across Europe, Asia, North America, which pretty much means I have spent an unhealthy amount of time in airport lounges, eating questionable hotel breakfast buffets, and trying to explain to very senior people why their training isn't working. That last part is basically my job, which is exactly why I want to talk to you today about AI, because I think we're at a genuinely important moment, and I think L&D has a specific and rather urgent role to play. So let's get into it, shall we? AI is making leaders more informed, and L&D's job is to make them more human. That's the idea that I want to explore with you, and I promise we're going to keep it this practical because that's really the only kind of L&D conversation worth having. And I want to talk to you about specifically where AI actually is useful in leadership development, where it quietly makes things worse, and what we need to do about it, starting today. But first, I want to start with a quick mental exercise together. Now, I want you to sit as comfortably as possible. Relax your shoulder, maybe even close your eyes or just soften your gaze. And I want you to think back to the best manager you've ever had, the most inspiring leader you've ever worked with. It could be someone you worked with many moons ago, or hopefully your current manager. I want you to visualize what it felt like to work with them, or walk into their office, or jump on a call with them. Now, focus on how you felt around them. Not what they did, but how they made you feel. Maybe you felt safe, like you could say the wrong thing and the world wouldn't end. Or perhaps you felt seen, like you weren't just a head count, like they actually registered you as a person. Like someone was genuinely, sometimes inconveniently, in your corner. Now hold that feeling for a second. And when you're ready, come back to me. Now, that feeling you just felt is called trust. And it wasn't built in a workshop. It was built through hundreds of tiny, human, completely unscalable moments over time in real situations with real stakes. You cannot prompt that. You cannot automate it. And you absolutely cannot train it with AI. And this is exactly what we need to talk about because here's the thing. That feeling you just remembered, it's becoming rarer and rarer by the minute. But don't take my word for it. Smarter people than me have crunched the numbers and done the research on this. So, for example, in 2022, about 4 years ago, trust in managers was around 46%. In other words, nearly half of all employees trusted their direct line managers. In 2024, that number dropped to 29%. So 2 years later, fewer than 1 in 3 employees trust their managers. Now, I'll paste the link to that research in the chat in a minute so you can review it later. But before that, I want to show you a couple more researches. US employees' engagement hit 31% in 2024. That's the lowest level in a decade. 17% of employees are actively disengaged. By the way, these numbers come from a Gallup study, and it makes for an uncomfortable and important reading. But here's one more that really gets me. Research from Microsoft's New Future of Work report shows that when leaders use AI assistants, they're often perceived as less trustworthy, less diligent, less genuinely competent, even when the output is technically and objectively better. So AI improves the work, but it can quietly undermine the person. Again, like I promised, I'm going to paste all the links in the chat. You can find them right now. So, where does this leave us? Well, we seem to have a trust crisis, an engagement crisis, if you will, on our hands. And we're responding to it by throwing more technology at it. Something doesn't add up here. Now, before I tell you where AI falls short, let me be completely fair about where it doesn't. I'm not here to tell you AI doesn't work. It does. Even Sarah and Amy gave you some amazing examples of how it can work. AI can help, for example, leaders prepare for a difficult one-on-one. It can help them draft and refine feedback that they're not sure how to frame. It can personalize learning content at scales in a way we simply couldn't before. It can be there at 11 p.m. on a Sunday when a leader is anxious about a conversation they have Monday morning and there's no coach available. That's genuinely helpful. But here's the problem. Preparation is not the same as capability. And being informed is not the same as being trusted. AI is making leaders more informed. L&D's job is to make them more human. So now that we've established what AI can do, let's talk a little bit about the gap that it cannot close. Because what would build the trust that you felt with that inspiring leader, what created that feeling of being safe, seen, and taken care of wasn't preparation. It's remembering what someone told you 3 months ago and asking how it went. It's staying 5 minutes longer on a call because something felt off. It's taking the blame publicly when it could have been very easy to say absolutely nothing. It's showing up the same way on a bad day as on a good one. AI can give the leader the right words, but it cannot make them someone their team trusts. And here's what worries me most. If AI always tells leaders how to handle hard moments, they never develop the judgment to handle them alone. The muscle really only grows if we use it. And right now, it seems like some of our development programs are quietly letting that muscle atrophy. Not because someone made a bad decision, going back to what Amy was saying about decisions earlier, but because perhaps nobody asked the right question. And for me, that question is, are we developing leaders or are we just making them better at using tools? Because AI is making leaders more informed. And L&D's job, our specific, urgent, irreplaceable job, is to make them more human. Now, before I get into the practical stuff, let me be very clear about something. This is not an anti-AI argument. I am not standing here telling you to throw out your AI tools, ignore the technology, or pretend that it's 2019. First of all, it wasn't a better year. Let's start with that. And if you've ever tried to personalize a leadership program for 5,500 or even 50 people without any technology, you know exactly what I mean. AI belongs in leadership development. The question is not whether to use it. The question is where and what we're protecting when we choose not to. The risk for me isn't AI. The risk is us, L&D professionals, defaulting to AI for the parts of leadership development that only work when a human being shows up fully. So this is not about doing less with technology. It's more about being deliberate about what we use it for. And that's the conversation, which brings me to the part I'm sure you've all been waiting for, what we, as learning and development practitioners, actually do about this. And I think it comes down to three things. First, use AI to inform, but protect the human. What I mean by that is simple. AI is brilliant at giving leaders information, helping them think through a situation, draft their approach, anticipate how a difficult conversation might go. Let it do that. That is genuinely useful. But the moment where leadership actually happens, the real conversation, the listening, the reading of the room, the decision to go off script because something feels off, as Amy put it, conversation quality, that moment has to stay human. And as a designer, that's yours to protect. In practice, it means being explicit about where AI is a tool and where it isn't. It means building pre-work where leaders use AI to prepare and then following it up with live, unscripted human practice. That could be a peer conversation or a coaching session. It could be a real situation with a real person, not a chatbot, not a simulation, but the actual thing. And what does protecting the human actually look like? Well, it might be a monthly leadership triad, say three people or three leaders rotating roles, bringing in real challenges from their actual teams and getting unscripted human feedback. It could be a shadowing initiative where leaders observe each other in real meetings and debrief afterwards. It could also be a structured but open conversation between a leader and their direct report with no AI generated agendas, no suggested talking points, just two people, a few, as Amy put it, powerful questions, and enough psychological safety to be honest. These aren't complicated, they're just human. So, wait, I guess they are complicated, but they're exactly what usually gets cut first when a program gets too full of content. So, use AI to inform and humans to transform. Second, design for repetition of the hard stuff. Again, trust isn't built in a workshop. It's built through hundreds of small, consistent human moments over time. What does that look like in a program? It looks like peer coaching pairs that meet, say, fortnightly, not once. It looks like action learning sets where leaders bring real problems. And it looks like structured reflection after actual conversations, not simulated ones. It looks like 360-degree check-in spread across 6 months, not one off at the end. So small, repeated human touch points deliberately built in and protected. Your job as an L&D designer is to create the conditions for those moments and make sure that your program isn't accidentally replacing them with content. Finally, ask whether the AI tool builds the leader's capability or does it do the work for them. If a leader uses this tool to draft their feedback, do they get better at giving feedback over time, or do they just get better at using the tool? If they use it to prepare hard conversation, are they developing judgment or are they developing a dependency? In practice, just ask yourself, what happens if we take this tool and we take it away from them in 6 months? Are our leaders then more capable or are they lost without it? And if the answer makes you uncomfortable, that's your signal. Use it carefully or not at all. So these are the three things. First, use AI to inform and protect the human. Second, design for repetition of the hard, human, and messy stuff. And third, check if AI tool, the ones that you use currently for your leadership development program, builds the leader's capability or does it do the work for them. Now, let me leave you with something small and immediate that you can actually do today. I'm not going to tell you to do a full audit of your leadership program. That's the project, not a quick win. And we both know it won't happen this week, if at all. But here's what can happen. Think about those feelings from earlier. The ones that came up when you pictured your most inspiring leader. Safe, seen, whatever yours were. Now ask yourself, what kind of leadership development actually builds that? Not a module about trust, not content on emotional intelligence, not AI roleplay. Real practice, real feedback, real behavior change, real human interaction, deliberately built into the design. That's the one thing I want you to check your program for. Where's the unscripted human relationship building moment in your design? Is it getting enough space and protection and time? Or is it being squeezed out by content? Now, if you know exactly where it is, fantastic, amazing, great, protect it. But if you're not sure, that's where you start. And on that note, let me leave you with this. Nobody trained that inspiring leader with AI. Nobody scaled their empathy or prompted their instincts. They just showed up humanly, authentically, consistently over time. And that's what we need to be designing for. AI is making leaders more informed. L&D's job is to make them more human. And that's it for me. Now, if you want to stay in touch, you can subscribe to the L&D's Academy newsletter. I will be pasting that link in the chat. Thank you so much for having me. I hope to catch you soon, and I hope you have an amazing rest of your week.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Irina. That was great. Well, that is all of the time we have for today, but thank you all for joining us and a huge thank you to our speakers as well. I hope you all have a great day.